Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of The Matt Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. First up, I need to make an apology to Mama Spelunker. I didn't wish her a happy birthday last week. It was her birthday on the 19th of June, so happy birthday to Mama Spelunker. And here's to many, many more. Sorry, Mom. And now, on to the regular stuff. This week, it is draft week in the NBA and NHL, so I'll talk about the plans for the Jazz and the Mammoth. I mean, the plans for the Jazz are pretty simple, but I'll talk about what the Mammoth are probably going to try to do as well. And then I'll also be going into just some random bits and bobs around the world of sports as it pertains to the state of Utah. I'll talk about the Big 12, but not about those things, because I don't talk about those things here. But I am going to talk about a couple of things that ESPN said about the conference. And then I'm also going to just talk about the World Cup a little bit, talk about baseball to Utah a little bit, and we'll see what kind of falls as we go along here. But thank you all so much for being here. As always, please, if you haven't done so already, rate this podcast 5 stars. Put whatever comment you want in the review. Just feed that algorithm, because you all are awesome and you do share this with people, and I super appreciate it. I really, really do. And please continue to do so. And you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. That is the Matt Cave Podcast. I'm also on YouTube. I did tease that there might be video. It all hinges on me getting a job and being able to afford a proper camera to be able to do that. So we'll see what happens there in this economy. But that is the goal, is to eventually get some on-camera stuff. Maybe weave in some highlights or something. I don't know. But that's a little bit of the roadmap for you as we go along. Maybe get some guests in here as well. I know that a couple of people have mentioned that they want to be on the show, so I'd be happy to have them. I just need to be able to set that up. And again, that takes money. Yay! So, again, to all of you that do, and I have spoken to about coming on the show, I need a job first. That's really what's keeping everything out. So, all right. Let's dive into things. Let's start with the NBA draft as it happens on Tuesday this week. Random. Tuesday and Wednesday. Sure, why not? And as we all know by now, it's been told ad nauseum, and I'm sick of hearing about it. The Jazz are picking second overall. And what does that mean? Well, what that means is the pressure is on the Washington Wizards, who pick first. There's not a single player that the Jazz want that they are willing to trade up for. Period. End of story. They're equally happy for all 3 options. Okay? All 3. They would be equally happy getting Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, Cam Boozer. They would be happy getting all of them. And for me and my money, Caleb Wilson should be thrown in there as well, because I do think he's going to be a very good pro. So, now that we look at these sort of things, the smoke screens being put up, AJ DeBonsa is going number 1 overall. Everything you're reading about right now is what you would read about in every single draft that has the kind of talent at the top that this draft has. It's the Washington Wizards trying to goad the Utah Jazz or another team to give them a Godfather offer for the first overall pick. That's what it is. That's all it is. There's nothing more to it. It's them going, oh, maybe we'll go for Peterson. I know there are teams behind us that want him. Or, ooh, Cam Boozer looks pretty good, right? No, it's going to be AJ DeBonsa. DeBonsa has the highest floor of any player in this draft. And he has one of the highest ceilings. Darren Peterson has the highest ceiling, but he has a pretty low floor because of what we saw at Kansas, right? And then Cam Boozer has a really high floor, yes, but his ceiling is limited. So that's really where we're at with those 3 players. The Jazz will be happy to have any of those 3. They're going to take the best that they think of those 3 at number 2. That's the way it's going to be. And that's the way it should be. I'm of the mind that you don't draft for need. You draft best player available. Period. Even if you have a power forward that is a perennial all-star, or should be, in Lauri Markkanen, if that best player available is a power forward, you draft the power forward. And you just make it work. You tell your head coach, there's the talent, make it work. The way you don't build a team is you draft for need, which is why you see teams like the Pelicans, the Nets, the Kings, the Knicks for a while, the 76ers for a while. They drafted for need. And They ended up at the bottom of the league for a long time. The Knicks bought their way in free agency and trades to where they are now. Not every team has that sort of niche in the market because teams don't want to play in Utah. For example, they don't want to play in New Orleans. They don't want to play in Indiana. They want to play in New York, Miami, Chicago, or LA. That's really where they want to play. Maybe Boston, but I'm digressing here a little bit. So the Jazz will take who's best available. It would be a coup if A.J. DeBonsa did, not go number one and Darren Peterson did. And the reason there's this hullabaloo here recently that, the Wizards are going to go with Peterson is because Darren Peterson met with the Wizards but nobody else, which is fine. It's up to the player to decide who he wants to meet with. There is no mandate from heaven saying that they have to meet with every team in the NBA. They don't have to. And Darren Peterson, rightfully so, believes that he is the best player in this draft and will be taken number one. You kind of have to have that attitude if you want to be successful on an elite level. I'm the best. I know I'm the best. Other people think I'm the best. So I'm not going to go talk to anybody else because I'm going number one. That's fine. Guess what? A.J. DeBonsa didn't do any workouts, any private workouts for any team. He spoke to anyone who wanted to speak to him because he's smart, but he didn't work out for him. You don't see the world screaming about that. So calm down. Everybody needs to calm down. And I think a lot of the reason that sports has become a little bit insufferable is because of sports betting. People actually are stupidly wagering money on the dumbest things. And so now it means more in the dumbest way possible. Because when sports betting was illegal, you had those people that had a problem, right? Who would have bookies and all this other stuff, or they would go to like Vegas or Atlantic City to get the bets in, which is the only places where it was really, truly legal. But everybody else, it'd be a funny wager between friends. Like, I bet the Wizards are going to Wizards and they're going to draft Caleb Wilson number one. That's what I would do with my buddies when I was younger. But now, people in their teens are actually putting sometimes hefty sums on these decisions that they have no control over and losing a lot of money. And that's where a lot of the ire, vitriol, and hatred is coming from. It's people putting money on the dumbest things possible. So I think that's why sports is becoming more and more insufferable, is because of the sickness that gambling addiction is, as well as the unabashed shamelessness of DraftKings, of FanDuel, all of these other sort of betting sites and betting places, just shoveling money into the fire, getting celebrities in there, Kevin Hart, LeBron James, Tom Brady, whoever else. If Tom Brady's not in there, I apologize, Tom. I just kind of threw his name in there. But big names like that, talking about sports betting, talking about throwing $100 on a wager like it's nothing. That's not nothing. That's a lot of money to some people. So I think that's why sports has gotten insufferable, is because people are overreacting because they're doing something stupid or something that they can't themselves control and losing real life consequences because of it. So that's why it's all getting insufferable. Everybody wants to get that inside scoop. Everybody wants to be Shams Charania or, getting a Woj bomb out there, thinking that they have it. They know. And so they bet on it, and they bet big because I know the Wizards are going to pick Caleb Wilson. So I'm going to put money I don't have on that bet, and I'm going to strike big. I'm going to be the one that's going to be on SportsCenter, that mystery bettor that put his entire life savings and then some on the most wild thing. No, you're not. You're going to lose your money. You're going to be a fool. You're going to be in debt. And you're going to be angry over something that you shouldn't get angry about. Anywho, that was a long thing, but it's something I needed to get off my chest. So back to the Jazz. They're going to take whoever is there. If it's not DeBonsa, it'll probably be Boozer, now that I'm thinking about it, which would mean Darren Peterson would fall to 3. If it's not DeBonsa at number 1, it's going to be DeBonsa at number 2. Two teams aren't going to make that same mistake. So if Peterson does wind up going number 1, and it's between DeBonsa and Peterson, at number 1. It's going to be DeBonsa. It's 1-2. Just whatever order it's going to be between. Well, I don't even think that, actually, because Boozer made a strong impression on the Jazz. And he is that quality locker room guy you need on top of his obvious skill sets. So I can see why the Jazz are reportedly torn. And the reason why I am talking about that is because it was reported by Tony Jones. If you go back in history and listen to some of my old episodes, I love Tony Jones. He's one of my favorite beat writers out there. Since the Jazz started tanking, he was taken off of the Jazz beat, and he's on with the Denver Nuggets as well as some teams on the East Coast where he's from. But he has been reporting on the Jazz here recently, and his articles are fantastically written and well-sourced, and I trust what he has to say. And he said that the Jazz are torn at number 2 between all 3 guys. I believe that, to an extent. If DeBonsa's there, they're taking DeBonsa. They're not that torn. Like, if Peterson goes number 1 and DeBonsa and Boozer are sitting there, it's easy peasy. They're sprinting to Adam Silver saying, here, just announce it now. It's DeBonsa. Like, truly. So that's kind of where the Jazz are at in this draft. They're not going to trade up to number 1. They're not going to give up anything to do that. It's 1 draft slot, and the difference between these 3 guys is incredibly minimal when you come to think about it. There's a lot more risk reward with Darren Peterson. You know what you're getting with Cam Boozer. And then with AJ DeBonsa, there's almost no risk, and the reward is immense. So that's kind of where it's at with that pick for the Jazz. I would be shocked if they made a trade to trade up to number 1. Like, I'm talking 0.0 repeating thousands of time to 1% that the Jazz are going to do that. Now, do I think the Jazz could make another trade? Absolutely. I think they could do another trade. Justin Zanuck and Danny Ainge have proven that they can do that, and they are talking about players that nobody thinks is available. Just look at the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. So, there we are. There's my take on what the Jazz are going to do, as well as the sports betting epidemic that is hitting this country. Now, moving on to the NHL draft, that's where things get a little bit more interesting. So for me, and my money, which I don't have any of, which is a good thing, I think that the Mammoth are going to trade their pick. I do. The reason for that is because Dylan Larkin, it has been reported by Marco D'Amico, who is a well-respected reporter. He's a beat reporter for the Montreal Canadiens, but he also reports on the NHL as a whole. He says that the Mammoth are in on the Dylan Larkin sweepstakes. And the teams that he mentioned are the 3 that have been mentioned because they were the 3 initial teams. It's Florida, Minnesota, and Vegas. And then after that, it's Tampa Bay, Dallas, and Utah as the other teams that are in on Dylan Larkin. Of those teams, the only team that can put a better package together than Utah for Dylan Larkin is Dallas. And the only reason it's Dallas is because if they can't come to an agreement with Jason Robertson, he's going to hit the restricted free agent market, which means a team can put forward an offer sheet onto Jason Robertson that Dallas can't afford to match. So if they can't do some cap wizardry in Dallas, they're going to lose Jason Robertson. Now, if there is that, offer sheet and it's not matched by Dallas, Jason Robertson gets paid, first of all, but then Dallas also gets some compensation in a draft pick. I believe it's like a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick, so it's not like they're out like Tampa Bay would have been if Darren Radish hit the open market. But they still lose one of the best goal scorers in the league for a draft pick. So that's where I'm worried when it comes to the Dylan Larkin sweepstakes saga, whatever you want to call it. I think Utah trades their pick. I do. Because Utah is in a very interesting window. They're not in the punch it, pedal to the floor, go for it, dump all assets into the team, our window's open, we need to go. They're almost there. But they also have a ton of those assets. Some people, some scouts and some like assistant GMs and whatnot have said that Utah has probably, if not the best prospect pool in the league, one of the best. Well, at some point, you got to put rubber to the road. And I think this would be the first step for Utah. Since it's looking like Austin Matthews is going to be staying in Toronto, at least for his contract, maybe the fastest he'll hit the open market would be at the trade deadline next season, depending on how Toronto is doing. You can't bank on that if you're Utah. But what you can do is you can create an environment that is really hard for him to turn down, whether it's as a free agent or the trade. And getting Dylan Larkin is a big step in that direction. Because not only does that make Utah one of the best teams in the West, it also adds another player that Austin Matthews enjoys playing with. It's a guy that was a very big voice in the locker room during the gold medal run, and Austin Matthews loved playing with him. And then it's been well reported that Austin Matthews and Clayton Matthews and Clayton Keller are friends that train during the offseason. They go golfing together all the time. They both live in Arizona. So there's a lot there. So it's building for the future, but it's also building for right now to make the team better. And so the reason I think they're going to trade this first-round pick is because Detroit doesn't have one. They traded their first-round pick to St. Louis for Justin Falk at the trade deadline. A trade that didn't really work out because Detroit was pushing for the playoffs and they didn't make it, which is why Dylan Larkin is requesting the trade. Interesting stuff. Because if you're Detroit, you're kind of backed into a corner a little bit based off of this trade because Dylan Larkin has a full no movement clause. And the difference between a no movement clause and a no trade clause is Dylan Larkin can't be moved, period, off of the NHL roster without him okaying it, which means he can't be sent down to the AHL and he can't be traded to Vancouver. He has to okay where he's going. And so to make Steve Yzerman's life a little bit easier, he's expanded his trade list, reportedly according to Marco D'Amico. That's very exciting for me. So the trade that I would put together that would hopefully make Steve Yzerman happy as he can be, losing his team captain and best player, is a deal that is centered around J.J. Peterka, believe it or not. So Utah gets Dylan Larkin. Detroit doesn't have to send anything else Utah's way. They don't. Utah sends Detroit's way J.J. Peterka because Detroit needs offense. They have Alex DeBrincat that scores goals for them and Dylan Larkin, and that's it. So you get J.J. Peterka, who is an offensive player. He doesn't really play defense, as we saw during the playoffs. And they get him. So he is a 30-goal potential scorer, which is huge for Detroit. But I'm also going to throw in Barrett Hayton because they need a centerman. He's not a top six guy. He's proven that. The proof is in the pudding. I'm not knocking Barrett Hayton. It's just the proof is in the pudding. He's a middle six center who can eat up minutes, and he will do what is asked of him on the ice. Like, he is the definition of a professional. So they get Barrett Hayton as well. They can sign him to whatever deal they want. Could be a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year deal at whatever money. He fills those minutes, and who knows, maybe he'll blossom in Detroit where he couldn't in Arizona/Utah. So you get those two guys. You get the first-round pick this year at number 19. It's not a terrible pick. You also can get, and I would approach Steve Yzerman like this. I'd say here are those assets, right? Hayton, Peterka, and the first-round pick. But I'm also going to throw in, if that's not enough, I'm going to throw in your choice of a prospect. My only restriction on that would be the big three are out. So Iginla, Desnoyers, and Simashev, you are not getting. Anybody else, you can get any one of my prospects and Michael Hrabal. You're not getting him either. But the rest, pick, go. And then I would just say yes. I wouldn't even say no. I wouldn't hem and haw. I'd say, yep, that's it. Let's send the trade to the hockey offices in Toronto to get this signed, sealed, and delivered. It would be really hard, I think, for Steve Yzerman to say no because he gets immediate help at the NHL level. He gets immediate help with his offense in J.J. Peterka. He gets immediate help with his center minutes in Barrett Hayton. He gets youth movement with whatever prospect he chooses. And then he gets a first-round pick this year to help supplement that prospect pool. If he doesn't want to keep that pick, he can then package it to go and get something else, right? So it gives him a lot of options, and that's something that GMs want. They want options. They don't want to be backed into a corner like Dylan Larkin has done to Steve Yzerman. Bill Armstrong can come to Steve Yzerman's rescue and say, here are the options. Let's do it. I think it would be really hard for Steve Yzerman to say no. The only environment where I see Steve Yzerman saying no is I either want an additional draft pick after this year's first, whether it's a second next year or something like that, or I'm waiting to hear back from Dallas if they just want to do a straight-up Dylan Larkin, Jason Robertson. I think that's it. I really do. I don't know if you say no there. I really don't. Because, again, options. You get to choose. It's like choose your own adventure. You can get the future. You can also have the present. Your goal is to make the playoffs. Maybe Dylan Larkin was the worm in your apple. You remove him, and then you save the rest of the bunch. So that's how I would approach it. That's how I would go after Dylan Larkin. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I do think that Utah trades this first-round pick to Detroit in a Dylan Larkin trade, especially if Dylan Larkin okays that trade to Utah. And Bill Armstrong can present to Dylan Larkin a vision where, hey, we made the playoffs last year, and we're only going to be getting better with this young core. We just need you to continue to put us over the top. And just think about that line for a second, that All-American front line. Nick Schmaltz, Dylan Larkin, Clayton Keller. Are you kidding me? That would send fear into the hearts of, I would say, about 29 NHL teams. The only ones who wouldn't fear that would be Vegas because they don't fear anybody. Colorado because they could just match it straight up. And Carolina because they're the champs. They don't have to fear anybody. Really, I think that would be fantastic. And then in a couple of years or even 6 more months, Utah still has the assets to go after Austin Matthews. I may be living in a dream world, but as you can tell, dear Spelunker, I have thought about this hard. And I really do think that's what's going to happen. All right. Now, I did say I'd talk about like national news, like the World Cup and baseball coming to Utah. Baseball coming to Utah still has that major obstacle. And has nothing to do with the owners ratifying it, has nothing to do with Rob Manfred being the worst commissioner in sports, has everything to do with the labor stoppage that's going to happen. It is. There's going to be a labor stoppage. There's going to be a lockout. Next season, it's going to happen. Former players are saying this is the same thing we saw when it was that major stoppage in the late 90s. And that's terrible because baseball is experiencing a renaissance. There are young stars that people actually want to go watch play. And my example for this is the Colorado Rockies game on, Saturday against the Pirates. Do you know how many people showed up for that game? Almost 41,000 people. Coors Field holds about 52,000. So they were almost at capacity to watch 2 last-place teams duke it out. Why? Because of 2 players, mainly one. Paul Skeens, who is the best pitcher in baseball, bar none. I will not hear or listen or bear any Paul Skeens slander. He is the best pitcher in baseball. Okay? And Hunter Goodman, who is the best player Colorado has had since, I would say, Nolan Arenado in his prime. Those 2 guys are why 41,000 people showed up to watch 2 terrible teams play baseball. So baseball has something, and they're about to ruin it because they're idiots on both sides. There is no, like I've said before, there's no good guy when it comes to this labor argument. There isn't a good guy. And everybody is excited about a salary floor, right? That teams have to spend up to this level or they forfeit draft picks or whatever. I don't want that. You know why I don't want that? Because a team like Miami is just going to go and pay one guy to get up to that floor, or 2 guys, and then say, hey, look, we're trying. And they're not. Same thing with like the Angels and Artie Moreno. I could absolutely see Artie Moreno pulling that kind of crap, especially when Mike Trout retires. He's like, yeah, look, I'm trying. Look at that money I shoveled out for those 2 guys. It's all my fault. So that's why I don't want a salary floor, because that's what they're going to do. It's as simple as the sky is blue that The owners are going to pull that garbage. Unless there is going to be something written in the bylaws that says you can't do that with 2 or 3 players, you have to spread it out, which the owners would never go for. So it's just, this lockout's going to be terrible because it's going to kill the momentum that baseball has built over the last couple of years on the backs of players like Aaron Judge, Vlad Guerrero Jr., guys like that, Juan Soto, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman. I mean, the list goes on and on. Ronald Acuna Jr., Julio Rodriguez. It's all going to get killed because both sides are stupid. But whatever. So that's a big obstacle to Utah getting a baseball team, I think. I don't think there's another region that can really offer what Utah can, aside from like Vancouver, for example, up in Canada. Because Canada proved during the Blue Jays World Series run that they do have an appetite for baseball. And Canada's a bigger market than Utah. I know that's shocking to you all, but that's kind of where we're at. All right, so that's the sports news. I just have something really quick I want to talk about, and it has to do with Destiny and Bungie and Marathon. So there's a lot of discourse out there about Marathon killed Destiny, or, Sony forced Bungie to kill Destiny to focus on Marathon as their live service game because Sony made a mistake in pushing for live service games from all of their studios, which they did, but they're kind of making Bungie the scapegoat of this. No, it's all wrong, and don't compare player counts of Marathon to Destiny, because the game that Marathon is an extraction shooter. While that style of game is gaining steam, it's gaining fans and players because of streamers like the Burnt Peanut. The problem is that it's a very niche game. It's a niche style. Not everybody likes it. Not everybody wants to play it. People will watch it for sure. It's entertaining to watch. But for me, I don't like going in with my loadout of stuff that I worked really hard for and then having some 13-year-old on Adderall and Mountain Dew snipe me from 900 million miles away, and there goes my gear. I don't like that. I don't. So extraction shooters aren't for me. But there are people who like that. It's a niche sort of gaming. And when you try to compare extraction shooter to what Destiny is, and Destiny is tough to define because it's its own game. There are games that have tried to mimic it, that have tried to copy, but it is its own game. It's a looter shooter, RPG, PvP, PvE, MMORPG sort of game that you can't really define. And so when people compare player counts, it's lazy. It's to generate an article. It's to generate a headline, to get clicks. It's lazy. What you need to do is you need to compare Marathon to other extraction shooters like Arc Raiders or Escape from Tarkov. And then you'll get a real feel for if Marathon is actually failing instead of comparing it to one of the best games in game series of all time. And I'm not even going out on a ledge here to say that. So that's what needs to happen, is these lazy article writers for these video game websites need to do better, is what I'm saying. Compare Marathon to other extraction shooters, not to Destiny. Because that's lazy, and it's not fair to anybody. All right, that's the show this week, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Let me know your thoughts on if I'm crazy or not. You can do that on my Instagram page or Facebook page. And I will see you all next week when we spelunk back into the Matt Cave.